quick tutorial to go over creating an assignment for Turnitin in your new iLearn 2.5. I'm logged in Instructor and I'm going to click Turn Editing On. Then I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to add an activity. If your settings don't look like these two individual boxes with resources and activities, it's because in your course administration you have clicked on this activity chooser. I'll click this so you will see the other way it may show in your class. On this one we're just going to click the one link and then we're going to scroll down until we find the Turnitin Assignment. We're going to check the little radio button that gives you a description and then click Add. The first thing you see is Turnitin Assignment Name and Summary in red. These are fields that must be filled in. Then I'm just going to copy and paste this into the next field. Now you can use your editing tools in here and make this bold so that it's more visible to the students, and then have it display on the course page. If you don't check this, just the link will show up. The submission type, there are three. There's file upload, that's where they would upload a file, a Word document or what have you. The text submission is where they would fill in a box or a text field with just straight typing or copy and paste from a word processing software. And the third option is to let them choose. They could use either or. I'm going to pick upload a file. The number of parts, this one I'm going to set at 1, but you could have an introduction, a body, and a conclusion, or however you'd like to set these papers up, and all three of them would be connected in the Turnitin assignment. The site upload limit is 20 megabytes to Turnitin for text documents. Originality report is where you would check their student originality report against every other written paper that they have on file, as well as the others listed in the next section. Allow late submissions, you can say yes or no. It would be marked that it was late. Generate a report, yes, we want to generate immediately so that the report can be written over. We generally allow students to submit their papers to Turnitin, find out if they have failed to cite something, and then they can go in and correct it and then resubmit it until the due date. We're going to store it in the standard repository. They're going to check against other student papers, the internet, journals, periodicals, and publications, and exclude bibliography and quoted materials. You can change these, but by default they're set to no. We're not going to do any exclude small matches or number of words. Now, next section is grade. Now this grade that you set here in iLearn will carry over into the Turnitin assignment area. So I'm going to make mine 95. And you can put it into a category if you've created one. The common module settings do apply, so if you have groups, you can use groups in this as well. And the restrict access, we are going to ask you not to use the restrict access in this particular assignment because it's kind of confusing. If you allow access here from a certain date to a certain date, when you go into your Turnitin assignment, which I'm going to show you in the next section, you'll have conflicting dates. So I'm going to say the 16th, and I'll say that it's due the 19th. And I'll set a date and a time. And so that's 1 in the morning, and I'm going to give them until 11:55 at night. So they get the very last minute. Alright, I'm going to save and display. And now, as I said, we are actually being taken into the Turnitin.com site. As you can see, it looks slightly different than ours. Now, it says the start date was the 16th, which is what we picked. However, I said 1 in the morning, and theirs is different. The due date is, by default, a week later in Turnitin. And the post date is indicating what time and day you will post the students' grades. As I said, the maximum marks did carry over. To edit these settings, you've actually got to go into Turnitin and click on this pencil, and then you can set these dates. Otherwise, they're not going to match from iLearn and then in Turnitin. So it's kind of confusing. So that's why we say, as a best practice, to not touch the restriction dates in iLearn at all, to leave those untouched, and to set up your course settings in the Turnitin area. So we're going to set this to what I said was 1 o'clock in the morning. And I was going to leave it open until 11:55. Oh, this one lets us do it to 11:59. The post date is never going to be the same day as the due date, so we'll be nice to ourselves and we'll give ourselves to the 30th to post the grades to the students. And then you're going to click on the submit. Now it's synchronizing the data into the Turnitin site, and when students do submit their work, it will go immediately to Turnitin, and you can go up here and look at the submitted papers. You can actually submit papers for a student in case they are not available. And the other options that you have is to auto-submit immediately upon upload and show grades as percentages, or you can do fractions, so 89 out of 100. Automatically refresh the originality scores and grades, yes, and list all students. There is a comment feature down here. You can only edit within 30 minutes by default, but you can set that for longer if you like, and you can also increase the number of characters. And then I'm going to click the Save Changes, and that's how you set up the assignment and Turnitin. This tutorial will show you how to set up a Turnitin assignment in iLearn 2.5. I'm in a class as an instructor, and I'm going to click on the Turn Editing On button. Then I'm going to scroll down and add an activity or a resource. I'm going to go into the Activities area and scroll all the way down until I see Turnitin Assignment. I'm going to click the radio button, and this will give you a quick overview of what the resource or activity is. And then we click the Add button. The first thing you see is that Turnitin assignment name and summary are in red with asterisks, so they are indicating these are necessary fields. So I gave it a name, and I'm just going to copy and paste that same name into the summary area. Oh, that's right. I have to use the Control-C on a PC and the Command-C and Command-V on a Mac to copy and paste. These editing tools are underneath that little tab, and you can make these bold and different colors and do a lot of the word processing. You can format this any way you'd like. Bolding it and maybe making it a little large might come in handy if you display the description on the course page, which you can do by clicking this box. Now, the submission type, there are three. There's file upload, which is uploading a document, text submission, which is when your students would fill in a text box or field or copy and paste into that text field. And any submission lets them select which one they would like to use. We're going to select file upload. Number of parts. This one is set to 1, but if you had a project that had a draft and then a secondary draft and then a final, or the introduction, the body, and the conclusion, you could set up different parts for your assignments. The site upload limit is 20 megabytes for Turnitin.com, and we have yes by default for student originality reports, which we do want to see. So the next set of Turnitin Advanced options is allow late submissions. This would mark them as late, but it is set by default to no. Report generation speed, that means you immediately give them a report on those similarity reports, and it will be overwritten as well as the paper will be until the due date. We're going to store the student papers in the standard repository and check them against student papers, the internet, journals, periodicals, and publications. We're going to exclude the bibliography and quoted materials. You may change these, but by default they're set to no. We're going to not bother with the exclude small matches or the number of words, but we do want to look at this next area, which is closed. We're going to click it to open it up, and this is the grade. Now this grade will transfer over into the Turnitin site. I'm going to select 90 for this particular paper, and I'm going to put it in the individual activities. I had created already grade categories in my grade book. Now the common module settings do apply. If you are using groups, you may click on the groups, and this is show and hide, but we advise you to leave those in default unless you are using groups. The next button, we recommend that you leave this one alone, totally untouched, and we'll show you the reason why. Under restrict access, we can in fact set up dates, but these dates will not transfer over into the Turnitin page, which we will look at next. So just to prove my point, I'm going to enable both of these. September 16th is today. I'll set this one up for 1 o'clock in the morning, and then we'll have the paper due on, let's say, the 18th, and we'll have it turned in at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm not going to do anything with these conditional grade fields or the user fields, but I am going to scroll down here and click on Save and Display. Now we are into the Turnitin Assignment page. It looks a little different, but it still looks like we're in iLearn. However, we're not. And as you can see, the start date was the same, today's date. The due date says the 23rd. By default, it gives you a week in Turnitin for the due date, unless you change it. And as you can see, it's 1708. This is randomly generated, and I'm not sure quite how. The post date in Turnitin is always the same date as the due date, and that is when you are supposed to have your grades back to your students. So we know that doesn't work. The marks area is correct. We did want it to be 90 points or marks, and to edit these dates you click the pencil in Turnitin. Now you can reset these dates to the dates and times we had set, which was the 18th, and I said 3 o'clock in the morning, and this one had been at 1 o'clock in the morning. The due date, the post date is set to the 23rd. So let's take a look at this. The 18th is when it's due. I think I'll give myself to the 30th to mark those papers and return them to the children and return them to the students. So then I'm going to click Submit, and it's actually synchronizing the data now to Turnitin. That may be one of the most important parts, is to remember to click on that pencil tool in Turnitin. You can actually submit a paper for a student. You can look in the submission box and see which students have entered their submissions and check their originality reports. And then the additional options are to turn it in immediately, to show the grades in a percentage or in a fraction, like 89 out of 100. Automatically refresh the originality scores and grades, yes. All of these you can leave to default. This is comments that you can make, and 30 minutes before the comments are no longer editable, and you can also increase the number of characters that you want to leave in the maximum length of the comments. So when you're done this, you can click and save changes. I'll click back on the Summary tab, which is the first tab you see when you log in. And that's all there is to setting up a Turnitin account. And that's all there is to and that's how you create and update your Turnitin assignments.